I never imagined that life could shatter in an instant. One moment, I was behind the wheel of my car, the glow of my phone screen lighting up the dark interior, and the next moment that glow was replaced by the blinding flare of headlights. It was late, far past midnight, and I was exhausted from another night lost to endless scrolling and replying to work emails. I remember my eyelids heavy as I struggled to focus on the road. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, and without thinking, I glanced over to check the notification. In those few seconds of distraction, everything changed. A deafening horn blared, jolting me fully awake. My heart leapt into my throat as I looked up to see a pair of headlights swerving directly into my lane. I jerked the steering wheel with a cry, tires screeching on asphalt. Time seemed to slow as the other car grew larger in my windshield. Crash! The impact was thunderous. Metal crunched, and glass exploded around me. Pain sharp and searing ripped through my body, and I felt myself thrown violently against my seatbelt. I gasped for air. The wind knocked out of me. The world tilted and spun. I tasted blood. My head was ringing, and my vision blurred as spiderweb cracks spread across the windshield. This can't be happening, I thought in panic, a cold dread flooding my chest. My fingers trembled on the steering wheel, now bent out of shape. The smell of burnt rubber and smoke choked me. Somewhere in the distance, I heard voices shouting, tires screeching to a halt, a car door slamming, footsteps pounding toward me. My consciousness wavered as I looked down and saw something warm and dark staining my shirt. Blood. A wave of dizziness washed over me. Am I dying? The thought flashed through my mind with surreal calmness, even as chaos reigned around me. I was dimly aware of someone tugging at my door, yelling words I couldn't understand. My vision tunneled. The last thing I remember was the distant wail of sirens and my own heartbeat thundering in my ears like a drum. Then everything went silent and black. I found myself in silence and darkness, yet I felt no pain. I opened my eyes, if they were eyes, to find I was no longer in my car. I seemed to float in a boundless space of soft light and shadow. A gentle luminescence clung to me, like the first hint of dawn. Everything was warm and calm. Though I didn't recall moving, I felt solid ground beneath my feet. I looked around in confusion. In the distance, I heard faint murmurs, like voices carried on a breeze. Soft whispers came from all directions. I couldn't make out words, but I felt their emotion: concern, love, longing. It was as if the universe itself was speaking just beyond my understanding. "Hello," I called, my voice small. The whispers swelled for a moment, then quieted. I took a hesitant step toward a subtle light glowing ahead. It started as a pinprick, then grew brighter and warmer, beckoning me closer. With each step, a feeling of deep peace bloomed in my chest, mixed with an ache of yearning. As I neared the light, some of the whispers became voices I knew. I heard my father's gentle rumble, the way he'd sounded reading me stories long ago. I caught the soft lilt of my grandmother singing. They seemed to welcome me, though I still couldn't discern their words. Tears gathered in my eyes at the comfort of those familiar, long-lost voices. Then, cutting through that warmth, came another voice, distant but distinct. "Amelia? Amelia!" It was calling my name. My heart, if I still had one here, lurched. I recognized that voice too. It wasn't from the past, it was Ben. Images burst into being around me like floating panels of glass. Each one held a scene from my life. I turned in a slow circle, heart pounding, as I watched myself in each memory. To my right, I saw myself on the couch, next to Ben. The TV flickered, and he was talking to me, but I was glued to my phone. I watched his face fall as I mumbled absent-minded responses. He had been telling me about his day, something that clearly mattered to him, and I didn't even look up. Eventually, he fell silent, eyes downcast, while I continued scrolling. The sight made my chest ache with shame. Another image floated forward, equals my mother in the living room at home, holding her phone and calling me. I heard her soft voice. "Hi, sweetheart, just wanted to hear your voice. Call me when you can." In the next room, the version of me in that scene sat at my desk with headphones on, oblivious. I never answered her call. I saw my mother's shoulders sag as she hung up, wiping a tear. I had ignored her and didn't even know it. More scenes played out. Missed family dinners where an empty chair, my chair, made everyone else frown. Texts from my dad asking when I'd visit, left unanswered. Then standing alone at a restaurant with a bouquet on our forgotten anniversary while I worked late. A close friend leaving for the airport with a hurt expression because I gave only a distracted goodbye. Birthday parties of friends that I skipped, sending a quick happy birthday text instead of showing up. With each memory, the weight of regret pressed heavier on my heart. Tears blurred my vision. I wanted to scream at the me in those scenes. Look up. Pay attention. But it was too late for those moments. I had been physically present in my life, yet so absent where it truly counted. I wasted so much time, I realized bitterly. I'm sorry. I choked out, tears running down my face. I didn't know who I was pleading with, maybe everyone I'd hurt, maybe a higher power. I'm so sorry. My voice echoed into the void. As if in answer, the images began to fade. The glowing panels dimmed and winked out one by one, leaving me kneeling in darkness. The loving light I'd seen in the distance was receding too, and the chorus of familiar voices grew faint. In the silence that followed, one sound remained, a voice calling from somewhere far off, urgent and clear. Amelia, come back, come back. With a sudden lurch, I felt myself falling backward, pulled away from the light and peace. The whispers faded, replaced by harsh, urgent sounds, beeping monitors, shouted voices. A jolt of pain seized me. I gasped, my chest burning, and the scent of antiseptic filled my nose. I forced my eyes open to blinding fluorescent light. A figure in a blue cap hovered above me. She's back, someone said, voice relieved. An oxygen mask covered my face, and I realized I was tangled in tubes and wires. Every inch of my body throbbed in agony. I was alive. I had returned. A sob of pain and gratitude escaped me. I tried to speak to say I'm here, or I'm sorry, but only a weak croak came out. A nurse squeezed my hand. Don't try to talk, she soothed. You're in the hospital. You were in an accident, but you're safe now. Safe. The word echoed in my mind. I remembered the golden light and the heart-wrenching scenes I'd witnessed. It felt as real as this pain. Tears leaked from the corners of my eyes. Then a warm hand clasped mine. I turned my head and saw Ben beside me. His eyes were red and filled with tears. Amelia, he whispered, voice breaking. I'm here. I'm right here. My heart flooded with emotion. I managed a rasping. I'm so sorry. He shook his head quickly, lifting my hand to his lips. It's okay. You're okay. That's all that matters, he murmured, tears streaming down his face. In that moment, seeing the love and relief in his eyes, I understood that I had been given a miracle, a second chance. Not everyone who dies gets to come back. I closed my eyes, squeezing Ben's hand, and silently promised that I would never squander this gift of life. Surviving was one thing, recovering was another battle entirely. I spent weeks in the hospital recovering from a concussion, broken ribs, a fractured leg, and a deep gash along my side. Every movement hurt, every breath ached. Yet the physical pain was nothing compared to the guilt that gnawed at me. Night after night, I lay awake replaying those visions of my life, each missed moment, each loved one I'd pushed aside. I often wept quietly in the dark, whispering I'm sorry to people who weren't there to hear it. Through it all, Ben stayed by my side. He slept in the chair next to my bed more nights than he slept at home. Whenever I whimpered in pain or woke from a nightmare, he was there to squeeze my hand and comfort me. I marveled at his patience and love. One morning, I found him still holding my hand, eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion. You should go home and rest, I rasped. He just shook his head and smiled. I'm not going anywhere, he murmured. His devotion made me cry. I knew I didn't deserve it, but I was so grateful. When my parents were finally allowed to visit, I broke down as soon as I saw them. I blurted out tearful apologies for all the times I'd neglected them. My mother kissed my forehead, and my father's eyes were wet as he said, "We've got you, Amelia. That's all that matters now." They weren't angry. They were just relieved I was alive. I realized how lucky I was to be loved so much despite my mistakes. Physical therapy began as soon as I could sit up. At first, I could barely shuffle a few steps with a walker. My muscles were weak, and my injured leg protested every movement. It was humbling to need help with basic tasks, but each day brought a tiny improvement. I managed to stand a second longer, take one step further. The hospital staff cheered every small victory, and Ben was there, beaming with pride at each milestone. As my body slowly healed, I worked on healing my heart too. I filled pages of a journal with my fears, my sorrows, and my hopes. Writing became my therapy. I also found myself uninterested in TV or my phone. Instead, I spent hours watching sunlight creep across the wall or listening to birds outside my window. My mind craved the reality I'd been ignoring for so long. Day by day, I grew stronger, and not just physically. With each passing day, I felt my resolve solidify. I knew that when the time came for me to leave the hospital and step back into the world, I would never again take life or love for granted. Leaving the hospital was both exhilarating and terrifying. After weeks in a controlled environment, the outside world felt almost brand new. I remember rolling through the exit in a wheelchair and pausing to tilt my face up to the sun, letting its warmth wash over me. The sky seemed a deeper blue than I ever recalled, and the air smelled of grass and freedom. I'm alive, I thought, my heart swelling with gratitude. My mother drove me home, with Ben beside me. As we went through my neighborhood, I noticed details I'd long ignored. Children laughing as they chased each other on bikes, neighbors chatting on their porches, a stray cat sunning itself on a fence. Every sight was a reminder of life happening around me, life I was finally ready to join. Stepping into my apartment was surreal. Everything was exactly as it had been the night of the accident. My laptop lay on the coffee table, the screen dark, a discarded blanket and an empty coffee cup sat where I'd left them. It looked like a snapshot of my old life, frozen in time. Seeing it made me shiver. I wasn't that person anymore, or at least I didn't want to be. My mom fussed over getting me comfortable on the couch. She placed my phone, which had been buried under mail, next to me. I picked it up, feeling its familiar weight, then quietly set it aside on a shelf out of reach. I didn't trust myself with it yet, and honestly, I didn't even miss it. The first days home, I focused on healing and building new routines. Each morning, I'd sit by the window with a notebook and list a few things I was grateful for. It could be as simple as having slept well, or being able to move a little more easily. Starting the day with gratitude helped keep me grounded and present. Continuing my exercises was painful and slow, but I kept at it. One afternoon, after a particularly challenging set of stretches, I felt the old tug of frustration and escapism. Without thinking, I reached for my laptop, craving distraction from the discomfort. My hand hovered over it. Then I remembered lying in that hospital bed, vowing to live differently. I pulled my hand back and grabbed my journal instead, scribbling down exactly how I felt, angry, helpless, but also determined. By the time I put the pen down, the urge to hide behind a screen had passed. It was a small victory over my old habits, and I smiled to myself for winning that fight. Venturing outside again took courage. The first short walk to the mailbox left me breathless and shaking as the distant sound of traffic brought back a flash of the crash. But I didn't turn back. Day by day, I pushed myself a little further. Soon I was walking down the block, then around the corner. Ben often accompanied me, especially when I attempted to cross the street for the first time. I clutched his hand tightly as we stepped off the curb. My heart pounded and my leg trembled, but we made it to the other side. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, and he beamed at me like I'd just conquered a mountain. In a way, I had an inner mountain of fear. As I grew stronger, my friends came back into my life as well. A few of them visited to celebrate my return home. We sat in my living room, and, for once, nobody was distracted by a phone or thinking about rushing off. I told them about the accident and even shared the story of the light I saw and the regrets I faced. I worried they might think I was exaggerating, but they listened intently, some with tears in their eyes. One of my closest friends admitted that my experience shook him. He realized he'd been drifting through his own life on autopilot, spending too little time with his family. "I don't want to wait for a tragedy to wake me up," he said, voice thick with emotion. Others nodded in agreement. Knowing that my second chance was inspiring the people I cared about to cherish their own lives made all my struggles feel worthwhile. It's been a few months since the accident, and every morning still feels like a gift. I have some scars and occasional aches, reminders of how fragile life is, but I've healed far more than I once imagined. I wake with the sun now, whispering a thank you for another day. Life has taken on a new, gentler rhythm. I return to work part-time, with strict boundaries to keep my balance. When I'm off the clock, I'm truly off. Evenings are no longer spent staring at screens. I might take a stroll through the neighborhood, paint a little, a hobby I'd abandoned, or simply sit on the balcony listening to the world go by. I savor the taste of my food, the feel of a book in my hands, the sound of laughter when I'm with the people I love. Whatever I do it with my full attention now. My relationships, once strained by my distraction, have flourished. Ben and I are closer than ever. We talk for hours about our days, our dreams, or even nothing important at all, just happy to be really listening to each other. Sometimes we still catch ourselves absent-mindedly reaching for our phones, but we gently remind each other to tuck them away. There's an honesty and patience between us now that feels brand new, forged by the knowledge of how close we came to losing everything. I've mended ties with my family as well. I call my mom and dad every few days just to chat, and we have dinner together at least once a week. The first time I went back to my parents' house, my mom cooked my favorite meal, and we all lingered around the table for hours. Later that evening, I sat on the porch swing with my dad, watching the stars blink to life. He said quietly, "It's good to have you here, Amelia." I knew he wasn't just talking about me visiting. He meant here in their lives again, truly present. I squeezed his hand and promised I wouldn't drift away again. Feeling grateful beyond words, I decided to share my story publicly. With the encouragement of my therapist, I wrote an online post about the accident, the vision I had, and the changes I made. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from old friends, acquaintances, even strangers, saying that my story was a wake-up call. Some vowed to put down their phones more often and spend time with family. Others reached out to people they'd lost touch with. Knowing that something I went through could inspire others to cherish their lives gave meaning to my survival. It made me feel that perhaps this was why I was given a second chance, to pass on what I learned. Sometimes late at night, I sit by my bedroom window and gaze at the moon. In those quiet moments, I remember the place between life and death where I felt such love and regret intertwined. I still feel echoes of it, like a soft whisper in my heart reminding me to stay true to what matters. When the world is silent, I close my eyes and listen to my own steady breath and the beating of my heart, and to that quiet inner voice I once ignored. I no longer worry about missing out on the endless buzz of the online world. What I fear now is missing out on real moments that truly matter. So I make a promise to myself each day to stay present for the people I love and for the simple joys around me. I will not forget the lessons I learned when I hovered at the edge of life and death. I carry them with me in every step I take. As I drift off to sleep each night, I often find myself smiling in the darkness. I think of those gentle whispers beyond the screen of my former life, and I imagine they're still there, pleased that I can finally hear them. In return, I offer up my own silent whisper into the night. Thank you. And with that, I sleep, grateful for the chance to live differently when morning comes.